In 1991, a college student in New Jersey received a strange voicemail that would change her life forever. The message contained nothing but heavy breathing and a whispered phrase, "Humans can lick too." That night, she woke to find her roommate dead, with a message written in blood on the wall. "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights?" This urban legend has circulated on college campuses for decades, striking fear into the hearts of students living alone for the first time. But what makes these stories so powerful? Why do we continue to share them, despite knowing they're likely false? Urban legends are modern folklore, contemporary myths that spread through our culture like wildfire. They're the stories told around campfires, whispered in dorm rooms, and now shared across social media platforms. These tales reflect our deepest fears and anxieties, often serving as cautionary tales for modern life. What makes them particularly effective is their blend of plausibility and horror. They always happen to a friend of a friend, just close enough to feel real, yet distant enough to maintain mystery. The power of urban legends lies in their ability to tap into our collective psyche. They're not just stories, they're cultural artifacts that reveal what we truly fear as a society. From the hook-handed killer targeting young couples to the babysitter receiving threatening calls from inside the house, these tales reflect anxieties about vulnerability, technology, and the unknown dangers lurking in seemingly safe spaces. Take, for example, the infamous kidney heist legend. A businessman travels to a foreign city for work. After meeting an attractive stranger at a bar, he wakes up the next morning in a bathtub filled with ice, with a note telling him to call emergency services. The horrifying revelation? His kidneys have been surgically removed by organ traffickers. This legend first appeared in the 1990s and continues to circulate today, despite no verified cases ever being documented. What makes this story persist? It plays on our fears of vulnerability when traveling, stranger danger, and anxieties about medical procedures. It's also a perfect reflection of our modern concerns about bodily autonomy and exploitation. The story feels plausible enough that we can imagine it happening, yet outlandish enough to create that delicious sense of horror that keeps us engaged. Another enduring urban legend is the call from the grave. In this tale, a woman receives phone calls from her recently deceased husband. The calls come at the same time each night, featuring only static and occasionally what sounds like her husband's voice. When she finally has the calls traced, the phone company informs her that the calls are coming from her husband's cell phone, which was buried with him. This legend taps into our grief and desire to communicate with lost loved ones, while simultaneously exploiting our fear of technology and the unknown. The Bloody Mary ritual has terrified slumber party attendees for generations. The legend states that if you stand in a darkened bathroom, look into a mirror, and chant Bloody Mary 3 times, a vengeful spirit will appear and scratch your eyes out, drive you insane, or drag you into the mirror. What's fascinating about this legend is its interactive nature. It invites participation, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of fear. The power of suggestion, combined with the disorienting effect of staring at your own reflection in dim lighting, often leads participants to believe they've seen something supernatural. These stories aren't just entertainment, they serve important social functions. They warn us about potential dangers, reinforce cultural norms, and provide a safe way to explore frightening concepts. When we share urban legends, we're participating in a tradition as old as humanity itself, using stories to make sense of a chaotic and sometimes frightening world. But perhaps the most terrifying urban legend of all is one that continues to evolve with our changing technology landscape. It's known as the Watcher, and it first gained mainstream attention in 2014 when a family in Westfield, New Jersey, purchased their dream home only to begin receiving disturbing letters from someone calling themselves the Watcher. The letters contained personal details about the family and their children, suggesting the sender had been observing them closely. The letters included phrases like, "Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls? I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for a second coming." The family was so terrified they never fully moved into the house, eventually selling it at a significant loss. What makes this legend particularly chilling is that it's based on a documented case, though many details remain unverified and the identity of the watcher was never discovered. This legend speaks to our deepest fears about privacy, security, and the sanctity of our homes. In an age of increasing surveillance, both digital and physical, the idea that someone could be watching us without our knowledge strikes a profound chord of terror. The legend has spawned numerous variations, including stories of hidden cameras and vacation rentals, stalkers using smart home technology to terrorize residents, and mysterious figures appearing in the backgrounds of family photos. What's particularly effective about the Watcher legend is how it evolves with technology. In the 1970s version, it might have involved mysterious phone calls or letters. Today's versions incorporate smart doorbells, hacked security systems, and social media stalking. The core fear remains the same: invasion of privacy and the violation of safe spaces. But the details shift to reflect contemporary anxieties. Urban legends like these persist because they're malleable, adapting to new technologies and social contexts while maintaining their core psychological impact. They're also incredibly effective at spreading. Before the internet, these tales traveled by word of mouth, changing slightly with each telling. Today, they spread at lightning speed across social media platforms, often presented as true stories or warnings. Consider the Blue Whale Challenge, a supposed online game that emerged around 2016, allegedly encouraging teenagers to complete a series of increasingly dangerous tasks, culminating in suicide. Despite little evidence that the challenge existed as described, the legend spread rapidly through news outlets and social media, creating genuine panic among parents worldwide. This modern legend reflects our fears about online influence, teenage vulnerability, and the dark corners of the internet. What makes urban legends so persistent is their emotional resonance. They're designed to evoke strong feelings: fear, disgust, shock, or moral outrage. These emotional responses make the stories memorable and shareable. When we hear a particularly effective urban legend, we feel compelled to pass it on, whether to warn others or simply to share the emotional experience we had. The Slender Man legend demonstrates this phenomenon perfectly. Created explicitly as fiction on an internet forum in 2009, this tall, faceless figure in a black suit quickly transcended its origins to become a full-fledged urban legend. The story was so compelling that by 2014, it had inspired real-world violence when two 12-year-old girls stabbed their classmates, claiming they did so to please Slender Man. This tragic case illustrates the extraordinary power these stories can have, especially on vulnerable minds. But not all urban legends are purely terrifying. Some contain elements of dark humor or irony. The legend of the Hook tells of a young couple parked in a lover's lane who hear on the radio about an escaped murderer with a hook for a hand. When they drive away in fear and arrive home, they find a bloody hook hanging from their car door handle. This story serves as both a cautionary tale about teenage sexuality and a thrilling narrative with a macabre punchline. Similarly, the legend of the choking Doberman describes a woman who returns home to find her dog choking. After rushing the animal to the vet, she receives a call telling her to leave the house immediately. The dog was choking on human fingers, and the intruder is still in the house. This story combines home invasion fears with a twist ending that's both horrifying and darkly human. These legends reflect our collective anxieties, but they also reveal something about the specific fears of different generations. Baby boomers shared legends about contaminated Halloween candy and razor blades in apples, reflecting anxieties about community breakdown and stranger danger. Generation X grew up with legends about kidnappers in shopping malls and the dangers of pop rocks and soda. Millennials shared stories about killer clowns and online predators. Gen Z has its own evolving mythology, often centered around the dangers of viral challenges and AI technology. What's fascinating is how these legends evolve over time while maintaining their core elements. The vanishing hitchhiker, a ghost who disappears from a car after being given a ride, has existed in folklore for centuries, appearing in Roman literature and continuing through to modern-day accounts. Each generation adapts the story to its own context. Horse-drawn carriages become cars, dirt roads become highways, but but the essential narrative remains the same. Urban legends also serve as a form of social control. Many legends target behaviors society deems risky or inappropriate. Teenagers having sex in cars, children accepting candy from strangers, people walking alone at night. The gruesome consequences depicted in these stories serve as warnings, reinforcing social norms through fear rather than explicit instruction. The Hookman legend, for instance, specifically targets teenage couples engaging in premarital sex in isolated locations. The bloody hook left on the car door serves as a symbolic punishment for their transgression. Similarly, legends about contaminated Halloween candy emerged during a period when traditional door-to-door trick-or-treating was being replaced by organized events, reflecting anxieties about community changes and stranger interactions. What makes urban legends particularly effective is their ambiguous relationship with truth. They're almost always presented as true stories that happen to someone just removed enough from the teller to be unverifiable. This happened to my cousin's friend, or a nurse at the local hospital told me about this patient, are common framings. This presentation creates a space where skepticism and belief can coexist. We can simultaneously recognize the story as unlikely, while still feeling that spine-tingling what-if sensation. Some urban legends have been thoroughly debunked, yet continue to circulate. The story of alligators living in the New York sewer system has been dismissed by experts countless times, yet the image is so compelling that it persists in popular culture. Similarly, the legend that Walt Disney's body is cryogenically frozen beneath Disneyland continues, despite clear documentation that Disney was cremated. Other legends contain kernels of truth that have been exaggerated or distorted. The killer in the backseat legend, where a driver is warned by a following motorist about someone hiding in their car, likely originated from real cases of carjacking and assault. However, the specific narrative structure, with flashing headlights as warnings and gas station attendants as saviors, has become standardized in ways that diverge from documented cases. In our digital age, urban legends have found new life online. Creepypastas, horror stories shared across internet platforms, represent the evolution of traditional urban legends. Characters like Slender Man, Jeff the Killer, and the SCP Foundation have created entire mythologies that blur the line between fiction and folklore. These digital legends spread faster and farther than their analog predecessors, reaching global audiences instantaneously. The Backrooms legend, which emerged from a single creepy image posted online in 2019, has evolved into an entire mythology about infinite, liminal spaces where people can become trapped forever. This legend reflects contemporary anxieties about reality itself. In an age of deepfakes, virtual reality, and increasing social isolation, the fear of being trapped in an unreal space resonates powerfully. What's particularly interesting about modern urban legends is how self-aware they've become. Today's audiences are more media literate and skeptical, yet the legends persist by acknowledging their own fictional status while still creating genuine fear. The found footage aesthetic popular in horror films and creepypastas plays with this tension, presenting clearly fictional content in ways that mimic documentary evidence. Urban legends will continue to evolve as long as humans experience fear and uncertainty. They provide a framework for processing our anxieties, a vocabulary for discussing what frightens us, and a communal experience that bonds us through shared emotional responses. In telling these stories, we're participating in one of humanity's oldest traditions, using narrative to make sense of a chaotic and sometimes terrifying world. So the next time you hear a strange noise in your house at night, or feel like someone's watching you as you walk to your car in a deserted parking lot, remember that you're experiencing the same primal fears that have inspired urban legends for generations. That tingling sensation at the back of your neck, it's the weight of centuries of storytelling, the collective power of human imagination creating monsters from shadows. And perhaps the most terrifying thought of all is this: not every urban legend is false. Some are based on real events, distorted and exaggerated through retelling, but rooted in actual horrors. The next time someone tells you a story that seems too terrifying to be true, remember that sometimes reality is stranger and more frightening than fiction. Have you ever experienced something that felt like an urban legend coming to life? Share your stories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this exploration of the psychology behind urban legends, hit subscribe for more deep dives into the things that terrify and fascinate us. After all, there's nothing quite like the thrill of a good scare, especially when we can experience it from the safety of our screens. Just make sure to check your back seat before driving home tonight. You never know who or what might be waiting.